Have you ever been in a conversation where, I don't know, you felt like you were speaking a different language, even though you were technically using the same words?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe someone stood like a little too close for comfort,
Mm.
or maybe they didn't make eye contact and it felt weird.
Yeah, or their tone just seemed off, like it meant something else entirely.
Exactly. Those little moments, they often point to something bigger, don't they?
They really do. It's this fascinating idea that, the way we communicate is so deeply shaped by our cultural backgrounds. And, well, that's what we're going to unpack today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because understanding this stuff is, it's super relevant. Whether you're working with people internationally, traveling, studying, or just, interacting in our diverse communities every day.
It's more than just helpful. It's almost like a superpower for avoiding those awkward moments and um, building better connections.
It really is. And it goes beyond just knowing the words, right?
Mm.
The grammar.
Definitely. We're diving deeper today. We're focusing on those kind of invisible cultural rules, the how of speaking and listening.
Like nonverbal stuff, body language.
Exactly. Nonverbal cues, what's considered normal socially, different conversation styles,
Mhm.
all these things that really influence how our messages land.
Okay, so what are we covering specifically in this deep dive?
Well, we'll look at some key areas where these differences really show up. Things like how people greet each other, the whole idea of personal space.
Oh yeah, personal space is a big one.
Huge. And tone of voice, gestures too. We'll see how these can sometimes cause, misunderstandings.
And you mentioned a scenario.
Yeah, we've got a role play dialogue coming up that should really bring these points home. Plus, we'll touch on some useful phrases and give you some moments to think about your own experiences.
Sounds good. And I think you mentioned some key vocabulary we should know.
Yes, exactly. To help us talk about this clearly, there are a few terms it's good to get a handle on.
Okay, lay 'em on us.
First up, culture shock. Have you ever felt that like total disorientation when you're somewhere completely new, where the normal rules just don't seem to apply?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that feeling of just being overwhelmed.
That's it. That confusion, maybe even stress, that's culture shock. So you might say, when I first moved abroad, I definitely experienced culture shock.
Makes sense. What's next?
Then we have customs. These are basically the traditional, accepted ways people behave in a particular group or society.
Like shaking hands versus bowing.
Precisely. Or taking your shoes off before entering someone's home. It's what's considered polite or expected. An example sentence could be, removing shoes before entering a home is a common custom in Japan.
Got it. Customs. And the last one.
Gestures, movements we make, waving, nodding, pointing, that have meaning without words.
Right. But these can be tricky, can't they?
Very tricky, because the same gesture can mean totally different things in different places. Think about the thumbs up.
Yeah, means good here mostly.
Right. But while a thumbs up is usually positive in the U.S., it can actually be pretty offensive in parts of the Middle East or West Africa.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. So culture shock, customs, gestures.
Understanding those three really gives you a framework. It helps you see beyond just the words to the cultural context behind them.
And that helps you sound more natural, more respectful.
Exactly, and more confident, ultimately. It's key for building those stronger connections across cultures.
Okay. So as we go through this, maybe think about this question. Have you ever had one of those communication disconnects where you thought, maybe that was a cultural thing?
Yeah, this deep dive is really about giving you the tools to understand those moments better.
All right. With those terms in mind, let's dig into how these differences actually show up in everyday conversations. Okay, so let's really cement those vocabulary words we just talked about. Culture shock, customs, gestures. How do they actually play out?
Right. It's one thing to know the definition, but seeing them in action, that's where it clicks. We'll use these terms as we go, so listen out for them.
And maybe repeat the examples if it helps.
Yeah, definitely. Or even think about how you'd use these words yourself to describe something you've experienced.
Okay, so first, culture shock again. That feeling of being lost, right?
Yeah.
Confused when you're in a totally new environment.
Mm-hmm. Everything feels unfamiliar, even simple things. You're just not sure how to act or what people mean. It can be quite unsettling.
Yeah. Like the example, when I first moved to another country, I experienced significant culture shock trying to figure out all the unwritten rules.
Exactly. Or maybe try repeating this idea. The unexpected differences in daily life led to a period of culture shock.
Okay. Next up was customs. The established ways of doing things in a culture.
Yeah, the traditions, the social habits, they tell you what's polite, what's expected. Could be anything from wedding rituals to how you queue for a bus.
Right, like the example. One common custom in South Korea is using two hands when giving or receiving something as a sign of respect.
Good one. Or, try this sentence. Understanding local customs is key to showing respect when you travel.
Makes sense. Then gestures, the body language stuff.
Mm-hmm. Hand movements, facial expressions. But, like we said, the meaning isn't universal. Big potential for misunderstanding.
Right, because what's normal in one place?
Could be rude or confusing somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, in some Mediterranean cultures, that gesture where you bunch your fingertips together and shake your hand can mean, what do you want, or show impatience. Might mean nothing elsewhere.
Okay, so repeat this idea. The meaning of gestures is not universal. It varies from place to place.
Good. Next term, personal space. That invisible bubble we all have around us.
Yeah, how close is too close?
Exactly. And that comfortable distance is totally cultural. What feels normal and friendly in one place might feel like someone's invading your space in another.
Right, it can make you feel really uneasy if someone gets too close, or maybe even too far away sometimes.
Yeah, it signals different things. So, an example. In more collectivist cultures, closer personal space often signifies warmth, while in more individualistic cultures, people usually prefer more distance.
Okay, let's repeat that core idea. Preferences for personal space are often rooted in cultural norms.
Perfect. Then, tone of voice. This isn't what you say, but how you say it, right?
Yeah, the pitch, the volume, how fast you talk, it tells you a lot about emotion.
Totally. It can completely change the meaning. Sarcasm is a great example. Or how a softer tone can make criticism easier to hear.
Right, like, although her words were polite, her sharp tone of voice suggested she was actually quite annoyed.
Exactly. So repeat this. The same words can have different meanings depending on your tone of voice.
Okay, and the last one, direct versus indirect communication.
Mm-hmm. This is about how explicitly people state what they mean.
So, some cultures value just saying it straight out.
Yeah, that's direct communication. Clear, explicit. I disagree. Whereas indirect communication is more subtle. It uses hints, context, politeness. Maybe avoid saying no directly.
Okay, so an example might be someone from a direct communication culture might say, that's a bad idea. Someone from an indirect culture might phrase it like, that's an interesting approach. Have we considered other possibilities?
Exactly that contrast. Let's repeat the general idea. Cultures differ in their preference for direct or indirect communication.
Okay, great. Got those 6 terms. Now, quick quiz time. A little fill in the blank.
Let's do it. You read them out.
Okay. Number 1. Experiencing a new country can sometimes lead to feelings of pause.
That's got to be culture shock.
Correct. 2. In many cultures, there are specific around dining etiquette. Pause.
That would be customs.
Yep. 3. Be careful. That might have a different meaning here. Pause.
Ah, gesture.
Right. 4. Some people feel uncomfortable when there's not respected. Pause.
Personal space. Definitely.
5. Even with polite words, an abrupt can sound rude.
Pause. That's tone, or tone of voice.
Got it. And 6. In some cultures, communication is preferred to avoid being confrontational. Pause.
That's indirect.
Excellent. Okay, now, just for yourself, listener, try picking one of those words. Culture shock, customs, gestures, personal space, tone, direct, indirect, and make your own sentence. Say it out loud.
Yeah, great idea. Actually, using the word helps lock it in.
It really does. Okay, so now we've got this vocabulary foundation. Let's look at how these things, greetings, space, eye contact, tone, actually differ out in the real world.
This is where it gets really practical.
Exactly. The theory's good, but seeing it in action, that's where you get the aha moments. And these aren't huge, dramatic things necessarily, but they can really affect how people feel, welcomed, disrespected, confused.
Right. Let's start with something basic. Greetings. How we say hello seems simple, but wow, it varies.
It really does. Like the handshake.
Yeah.
In the U.S. or Canada, a firm handshake, right, shows confidence.
Yeah, a limp fish handshake is not good. Exactly. But then you go to Japan, and bowing is the norm, and the depth of the bow, how long you hold it, that says a lot about respect.
Okay. Different levels of formality.
Mm-hmm. And then think about France or Argentina, cheek kisses, sometimes even when you first meet someone.
Right. Which could feel pretty forward to someone used to just a handshake.
Totally. And someone used to bowing might find a handshake a bit too assertive, maybe, especially right away. It just shows how important knowing the local greeting custom is. Avoids awkwardness, helps you connect.
Definitely. Okay, what about personal space? That invisible bubble.
Yeah, another fascinating one. In places like North America or Northern Europe, people tend to like a bit more space, right? Maybe an arm's length that feels respectful of individual boundaries.
Okay, but that's not universal.
Not at all. In many parts of Latin America, the Middle East, Southern Europe, people naturally stand closer when they talk. It signals warmth, connection. It's seen as friendly.
So imagine someone from, say, Sweden talking to someone from Brazil.
Exactly. The Swede might keep trying to step back slightly, feeling crowded, while the Brazilian might move closer, thinking the Swede is being a bit cold or distant.
And neither is wrong, based on their own culture.
Precisely. It's just different norms about that comfortable distance. A really key thing in cross-cultural communication.
Okay, now eye contact. This one seems straightforward, but maybe it isn't.
It's surprisingly complex.
Yeah.
In many Western countries, US, UK, Canada, making eye contact while talking shows you're listening, you're honest, engaged. Avoiding it can seem like you're hiding something, maybe.
Yeah, generally that's the vibe.
But in some Asian cultures, like Japan or Korea, too much direct eye contact, especially with someone older or in a higher position, can actually be seen as disrespectful or even challenging.
So looking down might be a sign of respect in that context.
It can be, yeah. Think about a student talking to a teacher. In one culture, looking the teacher right in the eye shows respect. In another, that same direct gaze could be seen as rude.
Wow. So context is everything with eye contact.
Absolutely. You really need to be mindful of those different interpretations to avoid misunderstanding someone's intention.
Okay, and finally, tone of voice. Not just the words, but the music of the words.
Exactly. The melody, the volume, the pace, it carries so much emotional information.
And this links back to the direct versus indirect thing.
Very much so. Cultures that value directness, like maybe Germany or Israel, often have a more, let's say, straightforward tone. Saying what you think clearly is just normal, efficient.
Okay, and indirect cultures.
Places like Japan, Korea, Thailand often use a softer, more modulated tone. They might use hedging words, speak more quietly, use pauses. It's about maintaining harmony, avoiding confrontation. Maybe might really mean no.
So someone used to directness might hear that indirect tone and think the person is being vague or wishy-washy.
Yeah, or even insincere. And the person from the indirect culture might hear the direct tone and find it blunt, maybe even aggressive or rude.
Man, lots of potential for wires to get crossed there.
Huge potential. It really highlights why you need to listen not just to what's said, but how it's said, especially across cultures.
Okay, this is fascinating stuff. Let's pause for a moment. We want you, the listener, to think about your own experiences.
Yeah, reflect a bit. How do people usually greet each other where you're from, or in the cultures you interact with most? Hugs, handshakes, nods, kisses, what goes along with it?
And think about eye contact, too. Is it considered polite to look someone directly in the eyes when you speak?
Mm.
Why or why not in your cultural context?
Remember, there's no single right answer here. It's all about recognizing the diversity of norms.
Okay. Coming up next, we have that role play you mentioned, a business meeting scenario.
Yep. We'll hear from colleagues from different backgrounds trying to collaborate, and you'll really hear these communication styles clash. Even though they're all speaking English, it's going to be insightful.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
All right, let's get into this role play. This is where we see all these ideas about cultural communication styles really come alive in, a typical kind of interaction.
Yeah, we've talked the talk. Now let's hear it happen. It shows how, even if everyone's fluent in English, those underlying cultural differences can still cause, well, maybe not conflict, but friction.
Exactly. So the scene is a project meeting. 3 colleagues, different countries, different ways of communicating.
Okay, let's meet them.
First, we have Anna from Germany. Anna tends to be very direct. She says what she thinks, values efficiency, getting straight to the point.
Okay, direct style. Got it.
Then there's Hiro from Japan. Hiro is more likely to use indirect language. He prioritizes politeness, group harmony, maybe avoids direct disagreement, might avoid strong eye contact sometimes.
Okay, indirect style. And the third?
That's Rachel from Canada. Rachel tries to be friendly, collaborative. She often uses softer language, tries to build consensus, avoids sounding too pushy. Kind of a middle ground, maybe.
All right. Anna, direct. Hiro, indirect. Rachel, mediator. So as we listen, we should pay attention to what exactly?
Listen to their word choices, definitely. But also their tone, how they handle disagreement or bad news, maybe even pauses or hesitancy. Let's tune in.
Rachel? Hi, everyone. Thanks for meeting today. Let's go over the progress on the Alpha project and make sure we're all aligned on the next steps. How did that sound?
Hero. Yes, Rachel, that sounds agreeable.
Anna. Right, let's get straight to the point. The deadline for Phase 1 is next week, and I need to know if everyone is on track. Hero, your design specifications.
Rachel, perhaps we could each give a brief update. Hero, would you like to start?
Anna. No need for formalities. Hero, are the specs ready or not?
Hero. Slight pause. Well, Anna, regarding the specifications, there have been some unforeseen challenges. They are not entirely finalized at this moment.
Not finalized. The deadline was 3 weeks ago. What exactly is the problem?
Hero. Looking down slightly, we encountered some technical complexities. I apologize for the delay this may cause.
Rachel, maybe we can offer Hero some support to get back on track. We're a team, after all.
Anna, support is fine, but we need a concrete revised deadline. Hero, when will they be ready?
Yeah.
Hero, hesitantly, I will endeavor to have them completed as soon as is feasible.
Feasible is not a date. Friday. End of day. Can you commit to that?
Hero nods, avoids direct eye contact. I will do my utmost.
Rachel, okay, so Friday it is. Hero, please let us know if you anticipate any further issues before then.
Hero, yes, I will strive to meet that timeline. Okay, so even in that short bit, you can probably feel the different approaches, right? No big fight, but maybe some invisible tension.
Yeah, definitely. Anna is super direct. Are the specs ready or not? Friday, end of day. For her, that's probably just being clear and professional.
And Hero, much more indirect. He doesn't say, no, they're not ready. He talks about unforeseen challenges, technical complexities, apologizes for the delay. He uses phrases like endeavor and utmost. Very polite, avoids confrontation.
In his body language, too, looking down slightly, avoiding the direct gaze when pushed for the deadline.
Exactly. And Rachel's trying to smooth things over, right? Perhaps we could offer support, trying to keep it collaborative, less confrontational.
It's fascinating how they're all speaking English, but their cultural styles mean they're kind of experiencing the conversation differently. Anna might think Hero is being evasive. Hero might find Anna a bit harsh.
Precisely. And this kind of thing happens all the time in international teams, in global business, even just in diverse communities. It really shows why understanding these styles is so important.
Okay, so challenge for our listeners. Can you pinpoint maybe 2 or 3 specific moments in that dialogue where those different styles, Anna's directness, Hero's indirectness, Rachel's mediation, really showed up? Pause and think about it.
It's a good way to sharpen your observation skills for these things.
Definitely. Now, okay, let's say you're in a situation like this and you're feeling confused or unsure. What can you actually say?
Good question. Having a few phrases ready can make a big difference. They need to be polite, respectful, but clear about needing clarification.
Okay, like what? Can we practice a few?
Sure. Try repeating these. First one. Could you perhaps explain that in a different way?
Could you perhaps explain that a different way?
Good one.
Oh. Or, I want to make sure I've understood correctly. Could you clarify what you meant by...
I want to make sure I've understood correctly. Could you clarify what you meant by nice?
And another useful one, just to be sure we're on the same page, could we quickly review?
Just to be sure we're on the same page, could we quickly review? Yeah, those feel helpful. Not accusatory, just seeking clarity.
Exactly. They help bridge those gaps without making anyone feel awkward. Super useful tools.
Okay, so building on this, next we're focusing specifically on indirect language in English, right? How using it can help in these kinds of situations.
That's right. It's a really powerful tool for communicating politely and effectively, especially when you're navigating different cultural expectations. Let's dive into how to use it well. Okay, so let's focus now on indirect language. We touched on it with Hero's style in the role play, but it's a really important skill in English generally, especially for politeness. Right, because just being direct all the time, while okay in some cultures, can sometimes sound a bit harsh or demanding in English, couldn't it? Especially in work settings or with people you don't know well.
Exactly. Using indirect language is often about softening the edges, making a request sound less like orders, suggestions less like commands. It shows consideration for the other person.
So it's like phrasing things a bit more gently.
Yeah, gently or tentatively. Think about needing a report from a colleague. You could just say, give me your report.
Which sounds pretty blunt.
Right. But compare that to something like, would you mind sending me your report when you have a moment?
Ah, much nicer. Same request, totally different feeling.
Precisely. That little shift makes a big difference in how it's received. It makes it easier for the other person to say yes, and it just fosters a better interaction overall, especially important in multicultural teams.
Okay, so how do we actually do it? Are there specific phrases or structures that help?
Yes, there are some really common and useful ones. Let's look at three key structures. First up, would you mind? This is probably the classic polite request formula in English.
Okay, so instead of close the door,
Okay.
you'd say, would you mind closing the door? It turns a command into a polite question. Let's have everyone repeat that.
Would you mind closing the door?
Perfect. Second structure. I was wondering if this is great for starting a question or a request in a less abrupt way. Sounds more thoughtful.
So instead of just, can you help me?
You could say, I was wondering if you could help me with this. It feels less demanding, more like you're gently inquiring. Let's practice that one.
I was wondering if you could explain this part again.
Excellent. And the third one is, perhaps we could. This is fantastic for making suggestions, especially in a group. It sounds collaborative, not dictatorial.
Okay. So instead of barking, we need to start now.
You could soften it to, perhaps we could begin now if everyone's ready. It invites agreement. Feels more like teamwork. Try repeating.
Perhaps we could take a short break. Exactly. Those three, would you mind? I was wondering if, perhaps we could, are incredibly useful for sounding polite and considerate in English.
Okay, let's try putting them into practice. Can you give us some direct phrases and we'll try to make them indirect?
Sure. Listeners, try to rephrase these using one of those structures. First direct phrase, send me the file. Pause.
Okay, how about, would you mind sending me the file? Or maybe, I was wondering if you could send me the file.
Both excellent indirect options.
Okay.
Second direct phrase, can you explain this? Pause.
Maybe. I was wondering if you could explain this to me.
Perfect. Sounds much softer. And the last one, let's talk later. Pause.
Okay, maybe. Perhaps we could talk later if you have time.
Exactly. See how that adds a layer of politeness and acknowledges their time?
Yeah, it definitely lands differently. Now, some people might think, why use all those extra words?
That's a fair point. But it's not really about the number of words. It's about showing respect for the other person's feelings, their time, their autonomy. It avoids putting pressure on them.
So it's actually smarter communication, in a way. Builds trust, keeps things positive.
Absolutely. Especially when dealing with potentially sensitive topics or navigating disagreements. It takes practice to make it feel natural, but mastering indirect language is a really valuable skill for smoother conversations.
Makes total sense. Okay, so next up, we're going to shift gears slightly and give everyone a chance to really reflect on their own communication experiences.
Yeah, connecting all these ideas back to your life, your interactions, that's where the learning really sticks.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground vocabulary, cultural differences in greetings, space, tone, the role play, indirect language. Now it's time to make it personal.
Exactly. This part is all about you, the listener, reflecting on your own experiences. Don't worry about getting it right. Just think honestly about how these ideas connect to your life. Maybe even jot down some thoughts or say them out loud.
Okay, so let's think about those communication gaps. Question 1. Have you ever had a misunderstanding with someone from a different cultural background? Could be at work, school, traveling, online. What actually happened? How did it make you feel? Did you manage to sort it out, or were you just left feeling confused? Pause.
Take a moment with that. Now, question 2. What do you usually do when you feel someone isn't understanding you? Or maybe you're not understanding them? Do you try explaining again? Use gestures, ask questions, or sometimes, do you just kind of let it go? Pause.
Think about those moments. Are they opportunities missed? Maybe. And third question. Have you ever felt uncomfortable because of someone's tone of voice? Or maybe their body language, like how close they stood? Why did it feel off? Did you say anything or just keep quiet about it? Pause.
These seemingly small things can really impact how we feel about a conversation, can't they? Reflecting on them helps build awareness.
Definitely. Now, to help you in those moments when you are feeling unsure or want to be extra careful, let's practice a few more helpful indirect response phrases. Repeat these after us.
First one. Could you repeat that in another way? Pause.
Could you repeat that in another way?
Next. I didn't quite catch that. Could you clarify?
Pause. I didn't quite catch that. Could you clarify?
How about, I might have misunderstood. Can we go over that again?
Pause.
I might have misunderstood. Can we go over that again?
And one more. That's interesting. Can you tell me more about it? Pause.
That's interesting. You tell me more about it. Yeah, that last one is great for showing curiosity instead of confusion.
Exactly. All these phrases help keep the conversation flowing positively, even if there's a bit of uncertainty or tension. They open the door for better understanding. It really reminds us that communication isn't just about the words we say, is it? It's listening, reacting, making others feel heard and comfortable.
So true. Well done for engaging with these reflections. It's a crucial part of the process.
Absolutely. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll summarize the key takeaways and give you a little challenge to work on.
Yeah, a way to take this learning out into the real world. Stay with us for the final part.
Well, congratulations. You've made it through our deep dive into the fascinating world of cultural communication. That's a really solid investment in your communication skills.
It really is. We've covered quite a bit today, haven't we? We talked about how things like eye contact, personal space, and tone of voice can mean very different things across cultures.
Yeah, and how being aware of those differences is so crucial for avoiding misunderstandings. That role play really highlighted that, I thought.
Definitely. We also armed you with some key vocabulary. Remember culture shock, customs, gestures?
Mm-hmm. And we looked at those super useful indirect language structures. Would you mind? I was wondering if, and perhaps we could.
Yeah.
Really practical tools for sounding more polite and natural in English.
And hopefully the reflection time helped you connect all these ideas to your own experiences and think about how you navigate communication challenges.
Okay, so to really cement this learning and help you put it into practice, we've got a little homework challenge for you.
Yeah.
It's in 3 parts.
Ready. Part 1. Think back to a communication misunderstanding you've had. Could be recent, could be ages ago. Briefly write down or just think through what happened, how it felt, and what the outcome was.
Okay, part 2. Using that same situation, try to use at least, say, 3 of the vocabulary words we covered today, like culture shock, customs, gestures, personal space, tone, direct and indirect, to describe what might have been going on, and also try to include at least 2 of those indirect phrases we practiced.
Great. And part 3, this is the active part. Sometime this week, in a real conversation, consciously try to use a more polite or culturally sensitive tone, or maybe one of those indirect phrases. Just notice if it changes the dynamic or how the other person responds.
This isn't about becoming someone else, right? It's about expanding your toolkit.
Exactly. Improving your English or any communication isn't just grammar drills. It's about building better relationships, feeling more confident, reducing friction. It makes you a better listener, a better global citizen, really.
Well said. So we hope this homework helps you actively apply what we've discussed.
And if you found this deep dive useful, please do follow the show for future topics. Maybe share it with a friend or colleague who might find it interesting too.
Yeah, spread the knowledge. And don't forget, there's a worksheet and a quick quiz link in the episode description if you want to reinforce things further.
We always love hearing from you too. Let us know what you learned, what surprised you, drop us a message, or leave a review.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, keep reflecting, and most importantly, keep having those conversations. That's where the real learning happens. Until next time.
Farewell, everyone. Keep communicating.